Okay. Shelf 4, Fiction Shelf 4, Part 2. I did get rid of that Richard Bradford Red Sky at Morning. I'm sorry, that it just had a corner that looked like black mold and water damage. I don't think it was anything active, but I don't want that aesthetically, and I definitely don't want it as a contagion in my collection. Mold can ruin books. One time back when I was trading books online through paperbackswap.com, somebody sent me just like a brick of black mold in a Ziploc bag. There was a book in there somewhere. And when I protested, she refunded my credit. I'm like, lady, I got cryptosporidiosis now from this. There's no way you didn't notice that. You know what's crazy? What's crazy is right after I recorded that last video, kind of being like, yeah, I'm divorced, and just kind of did a little tiny bit of real talk. My ex-wife called me up and was like, let's get back together. What? So that's an ongoing thing. Interesting. I feel hopeful and smiling. What? You know, sometimes you just kind of dialogue with the universe and it talks back. It's kind of crazy how that works. I have this because it's a spin-off of Hamlet. John Updike writing about Gertrude and Claudius, the parental figures in that play. There's also Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which is in the paperback section. I have an idea for a Rosencrantz type work, riffing off of Crime and Punishment. Talk about it sometime. But anyway, I love all things Shakespeare, and I love when a classic work has great works that surround it that began as like fan art, but are their own things. I've heard only good things about this. This was recommended to me by an English teacher back in the day. Yeah. Cool. Just got this recently. It's still sticky for some tags. This is in the teacher's lounge at the high school I teach at. Short stories. Looks good. Oh, this is why I got it. I think Sheila Heti's like a genius. Her book, How Should a Person Be, has stayed with me in a huge way. She says it creates a landscape she's never encountered before, which now feels like it was waiting to be captured and waiting to captivate. All along, I gotta get some hand sanitizer on there and get that sticky stuff off there. Yeah. Hey, here's a little beautiful book. Oh my gosh, that light is incredible. Gap between curtains. Could I have created a better showroom floor for these books? It's like they're blessed from above, celestial rays. Look at that. That's got to be like the Superstition Mountains. Or actually, it could be Sonora, Mexico too. Because it's got saguaros. This looks cool. Yuri Herrera is Mexico's greatest novelist. Okay. Great title. Science Preceding the End of the World. Great cover imagery. Beautiful. That's how you do a paperback right there. I'll definitely read that. My daughter Sonora is named after the Sonoran Desert and sonorousness. And kind of my mom, because my mom's name was Sandra Rose, and my daughter's Sonora Rose. So it's kind of, half rhyme in there. Okay, this book is just special. And it turns out now I've experienced one of the areas where it was set, up by Red Feather Lakes, Colorado, where my sibling was working as a cook for this weird commune called Shambhala outside of Colorado Springs before having to evacuate due to fires, major, huge, giant, biggest of all time Colorado fires. But this book is great. It's basically nonfiction, but it takes novelistic liberties when it reimagines scenes from the past. Written by a poet that never wrote anything besides poetry and this. And so this I count overall as nonfiction. It's like a nonfiction hybrid work. But it has an outright fictional sequel, which is so cool. There's one of the main characters in this book, as you hear about the life of this meadow over 100 years at least, is this next door neighbor named Lyle, who's like a rancher that can do everything. And, you also see him toward the end of his life as he's struggling with health, etc. And, if you had gotten a real sequel about the life of Lyle after this, it would have been like, he got old and died, probably. But in the sequel, Fencing the Sky, which is great, and I gave it away to somebody. Yeah, yeah, it's all right. I gave it away to people that live up where those stories took place, and they read them and appreciated them on some level, I think. But I think this is a beautiful book. I know some grad school colleagues of mine would bash it as being like colonist myth making, contributing to the myth of the West. But the fact is, people have lived and worked in this area we call the West, and there are stories to tell and identities to examine. But this is a really easy to read, vignette-ish book. There's one part that's like just someone's calendar schedule. And I woke up one morning, there it is. I woke up one morning at like 4 a.m. and I couldn't get back to sleep. And there was a copy of this nearby. And as the daylight started to come in, probably wasn't 4 because there was some light. I read this whole book, just like lying in bed over 3 hours or something. It was a day off. It was so great. And it's a fast read. I've read it a few times and it's good, as is its sequel. Wonderful portrait of a place on the border of Colorado and Wyoming. Don Quixote. Reading this book was such an experience. This is the copy I read. Kind of a cheapish copy. I remember a lot of typos. Cervantes, Don Quixote. I mean, this is the real granddaddy of us all. Milan Kundera in The Art of the Novel says this is the first novel. This started it. I'm like, what about this, which is literally referenced in Don Quixote, The Life of Lazarillo de Tormes. Anyway, I get what Quixote is saying, or what Kundera was saying. I also get what Quixote is saying because I'm insane. But I get what Kundera was saying, though, because so many of the conventions of the novel happen here. They're born here. There's so many great scenes, like where every character happens to show up in a hotel bar. It's fantastic. And, I think the story of the novel is a lot Don Quixote to Jane Austen. And, wow. Great book. Funny, complete. The coolest thing about this book, well, this is a literary precedent of what I'm working on right now. Mike is an ego beast. He always ties it back to his project. But the thing is if you're a writer and you're operating in what the essayist and poet Elisa Gabbard calls open mode, you're always with your work, and you're always connecting to your work, and you're always mining for elements. But anyway, this, like my book, like Mouse, this book was published in 2 parts because its author just needed to get it out there. And what's so great is after the first part went out, a badly caricatured ripoff sequel was written. And in the actual book 2 of Don Quixote, everywhere they go, people are responding to that. And they're like, there's Sancho Panza, what a glutton. And he's like, what? I like to eat, but I'm not that ridiculous. Sheesh. And it's fantastic. It's so meta. And it's from the 1600s. Cervantes, man. This book's great. I read this while living in a 14-foot travel trailer beneath a windmill next to a cattle pond out on ranch land in Arizona back in the day. And then I had to leave that area because the biggest wildfire in Arizona history happened up. Hey, that's crazy. I just mentioned that with my brother in Colorado. But the Rodeo Chudisky fire of 2002 chased me out of there because I couldn't breathe anymore. It was just raining black ash all the time, and the sun was a red disc overhead. But I read Don Quixote during that time, and it was great. I wrote an essay about that time called The True Book of Deserts, published in the Inouye Review online, if anyone wants to get more deets on that. No one does, Mike. Maybe. Anyway, everyone's got to read Don Quixote. It's a classic. You'll love it. It's great. It's fun. At least familiarize yourself with the story. It's good. Watch Man of La Mancha, at least. Now read it. So, people that weren't kicking around the literary scene back in the very early 2000s and late 90s don't know just what currency W.G. Sebald's name had. I mean, he was the golden writer of that time. Everyone was like, have you read Sebald? Have you read Sebald? And his books are beautiful. He mixes captionless images throughout. This one too. I've read The Emigrants like 3 times by him. Rings of Saturn is a really famous one. But when I moved to Boston in the year 2000, it was just Sebald. And he does have a great style, and it's very ambiguous and puts you in interesting places. and you're kind of being misled by the images sometimes. And so there's some really interesting interplay between visuals and text. Got a lot to say. This one won some big prize. What did he win? The National Book Critics Circle Award. Tragically, he died back in like 2001. A car crash. Man, graveyards are full of indispensable people. Who said that? It's a good quote. Sad. Susan Sontag raved. Is literary greatness still possible? What would a notable little literary enterprise look like? One of the few answers available to English-speaking readers is the work W.G. Sebald. Wow. Oh, them golden slippers. He looks like Little Lord Fauntleroy there, though. I don't know who that is. Anyway, but he's influenced a whole school of writing people that are still kicking around and doing good work. Teju Cole among them. Speaking of Kundera, I've read this one. The Unbearable Lightness of Being. I really do equate his books with like indie movies from the 90s. I mean, you know, I'm like this. In my family, we have what we call Leanne movies. Anytime something is like a foreign film, and many of these movies are movies we all love, but if it's like a foreign film, lots of talking, low budget, something we would have been dragged to by our sister back in the day and ended up liking on some level. It's a Leanne movie. But The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Kundera, this is good. A friend of mine told me the character in here was the most like her she'd ever seen in any other literary depiction. Whoa. But good, clean style. I really like his nonfiction book, The Art of the Novel. I mean, I have issues with it, but I learned a ton from it. And it makes me respect Kundera as a high-level operator. I really liked this Nick Hornby novel. You don't hear much about this one, but it's one of those books that to know of its existence is to kind of be ethically challenged of it, like that Peter Singer episode about essay about animal rights, like and giving all your money away. I'm like, interesting. Nick Hornby, How to Be Good. This is about a guy who tries to just become a genuinely good person, but he's married and it just completely disrupts everybody's life. It's such a funny idea. One of the ideas is really good in there. He's like, we have an extra room. Why don't we rent it out to an unhoused person or give it out, help them get back on their feet? And why don't we get everybody in the neighborhood to do this? And it like tears apart and upsets the neighborhood for a while. It's so interesting. This would make a great movie. Very interesting, very thoughtful and smart, philosophical. We'll reread Keeping because I'm going to reread it. I liked it a lot. Oh, and it's told from a woman's perspective, which Hornby never really does. Hey, Mike, I don't think you have enough copies of Going After Cacciato. Yeah, I think there's probably 3 or 4 of these kicking around in here. I don't know. But if a friend ever wants a copy, they got a copy. I'll just give them one. You know? If someone ever asks what's good, or their interests remind me of something that I got, I like to have lots of different editions of books I like. You know? Who knows which version I'll want to read when I finally sit down with it. This book rules. 8 Plays by Molière. Look how classic and basic and beautiful this book is. Dang. It's like The Monolith in 2001. 8 Plays by Molière. I read Tartuffe in this magical literature class I took in school, and I laughed so hard. I thought it was amazing. So I bet these others could be funny too. Or meritorious in other ways. That cool old price tag. It's like I'm a child in the 80s. Someone running away from the book. Interesting mascot. Hey, reading. Beautiful. Do you not love saturated colors on a plane? Yikes. If you love it so much, why don't you marry it? What if I did get married to this book, like in Pee-wee's Playhouse? Oh, man. Look at this beautiful book. The Stories of F. Scott Fitzgerald. When is this from? Look how gorgeous this is. What? As an object, you gotta just, like, raise the flag and salute. Look at all this stuff inside it. Oh, my gosh. Look, it's a receipt from, like, an old credit card machine. I remember, or something like that. Oh, no, it's a new account at Grodin's. What's this? Lambert and Associates Agency, Hearst Building, San Francisco. Oh, so cool. Look at that. True ephemera. Where did this come from? I thought I've had this for a while. I thought I got this at Coas Books a long time ago. Oh, Bernice Bobs are here. That's a great one. I read all of these back in the day. As Big as the Ritz. That's so cool. It's kind of fantastical. His family has a hotel literally built on this giant diamond they can't tell anybody about. This is a 1951. Wow. Oh, I like it. I'd put a giant poster of this cover on my wall. Maybe I will do that. Take it to a copy shop, get it blown up in color, and then framed. That would actually be a fantastic wall hanging. And that's a good idea. I could do that with my... Because I'm always like, I love these covers, but then what, you know? I mean, you can, yeah. The Good Soldier Svike. The best thing you can do is pretend to be an idiot. The story of a little man caught in a vast bureaucratic machine. Czechoslovakian. Czechoslovakian. Hollick was a comic genius. The book that Psycho was based on, the movie. I like Psycho. I like Psycho 2. I like all the Psycho movies. They're interesting. Psycho 2 might be the best one, but Psycho is great. It's so interesting. There's sequels to the book, too, that are really different. They go meta real quick. Psycho all came from Robert Bloch's book. I guess I don't read a lot of horror, but I've kept this around for years. I know I'd read it. I will sometime. I do appreciate... I watch more horror. That's weird. I think I was just not recording when I thought I was recording a bit. Sorry. Psycho. Robert Bloch. I'm going to end with this. Look at this cool small batch poetry book from Healing Between Parked Cars by Angela Ball. Owl Creek Press out of Seattle. The seriousness of Angela Ball's writing is like the seriousness of a marriage or of having children. Wow. These poems are endlessly graceful in their cadences. I stay awake until you are light, miles of streetlights going out, each light escaping to the next. Two bridges meeting, one a chord of quiet air, the other a green blind. The moon, rim, sliver, this tower of red lights, beating steadily all night long. Flight, two cardinals, red and an echo of red, came every day to the alley, where vines ran over a dark brick wall. Behind were shapes of taller buildings, all of them old, and one back window, where a watch repairman sat at work, his white shirt blessing the shadows. Well, I bought this for a reason, because I flipped through it and I liked it. Also, dig this crazy cover. What? There's no date I can find on here, but I remember looking it up online, and I think it goes back. What do you all think? I'm thinking 70s, 80s, but for some reason I thought it was 90s. Or even early 2000s. I don't know. It's beyond time and space. Speaking of Molière. I really like Tartuffe. And this is translated by the poet Richard Wilbur, who once wrote an introduction for my former brother-in-law's poetry book, Philip White's book, The Clearing. That's a good looking book too. I'm a big fan of objects. Anyone else like objects? You know, matter, like things that exist. Shelves restored. What's next? Some more books. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Maybe good things are on the horizon. Maybe life isn't just a valley of death. Maybe there's a world and its people. Maybe. All right, take care, everybody. Rock and roll.